Shanghai is still locked down, and people are reaching their breaking point. Could China's lockdowns end the Chinese Communist Party? Welcome to China Uncensored. I'm Shelley Zhang, filling in for Chris Chappell, who's plotting the downfall of the CCP. This episode is sponsored by Surfshark. You should be using a VPN like Surfshark to protect yourself whenever you go online. Someday, the Chinese Communist Party will fall. Will it be a slow domino effect or a sudden crash? The party has staked everything on defeating COVID-19. While other countries are opening up, China is doubling down on their zero COVID policy. You might think it was a mistake for the Communist Party to tie their political legitimacy to eradicating a highly transmissible respiratory virus. But the party is never wrong, according to the party. I've talked before about some of the practical reasons the Chinese regime is sticking with lockdowns, like the fact that Chinese vaccines aren't that good, many elderly people aren't vaccinated, and China has much lower herd immunity than other countries. Many parts of China also have a very poor healthcare system. But this isn't just about practicality, it's about ideology. From the beginning of the pandemic, the Chinese Communist Party has been using the coronavirus as propaganda. Only China is fighting the virus. Only China is shielding the vulnerable. China isn't going to live with the virus like other countries have done, because no one cares more about saving lives than the Chinese Communist Party. But because zero COVID is now about proving that the party knows best, they can't back down. Even when harsh, extended lockdowns are leading to this. So since the Communist Party has tied their leadership to defeating COVID, will not defeating COVID lead to their downfall? Of course not, because Shanghai is reaching a turning point today, right now, on April 20th, according to the party. Shanghai's new target of zero COVID at the community level by April 20th was communicated in recent days to the city's Communist Party cadres. The State Council Working Group, the Municipal Party Committee, and municipal government have asked that the turning point of the epidemic should appear on the 17th, and that zero COVID status should be reached on the 20th. Yeah, be sure to let the virus know that it has to stop spreading today. That's it. No more COVID at the community level. What is zero COVID at the community level? No new cases outside quarantined areas. Now, this might sound familiar because the city of Xi'an did something similar during their lockdown back in January, announcing they had achieved zero COVID on a societal level. How did they do that? By removing residents who had COVID from the city. Hey, then technically there aren't any cases in Xi'an. Problem solved. Zero COVID is impossible to achieve, so the Chinese regime will just move the goalposts and then achieve the new goal instead, unless they need to move the goalposts again. For example, did you think that zero COVID means zero COVID cases? Oh, no. That's a common misconception. According to China's CDC, the dynamic zero COVID policy does not mean having no infected cases. Yes, zero does not mean zero. You can have tons of COVID cases, as long as they're quarantined from society. Now, this isn't the first time Chinese authorities have fudged definitions like this. In fact, Shanghai's COVID numbers are incredibly weird, even for China. They have a huge number of asymptomatic cases. And it could be because they're counting mild cases of COVID as asymptomatic. In Shanghai, the asymptomatic rate has stood at around 97%, far higher than anywhere else in the world, where it has been closer to 50%. Epidemiologists say this makes no sense. But according to Reuters, adding mild cases to asymptomatic cases in other areas of China would give similar numbers to Shanghai. Why would Shanghai count mild cases as asymptomatic? Well, unlike other countries, China doesn't count asymptomatic cases in their official COVID case count. They count asymptomatic cases separately. Now, don't get me wrong, asymptomatic people get sent to quarantine camps, but they just don't make China's official numbers look bad. And that's what's important. So, to recap, because zero COVID is impossible, the Chinese Communist Party has redefined what zero COVID, or dynamic zero COVID, means. And their new definition means that they're going to need to do even more mass testing and then rush any positive cases off to the quarantine camps. People are more afraid of going to the camps than getting sick. People are packed together with no privacy, no showers, not enough toilets. This is not somewhere you go to recover from an illness. It's somewhere you're sent because you're diseased. The conditions of some quarantine camps are so appalling that they've been called refugee camps and concentration camps on social media. No one wants to go to the camps, but now they're going to shove as many people as they can into the camps in order to get those cases out of the community, even if it was okay for them to be in the community before. Here's what happened when a Shanghai neighborhood committee worker tried to tell a German expat that he had to go to a quarantine camp 12 days after he tested positive.
I tested first positive on April the 3rd, April 3. They left us here for 12 days, then they decided to take us, then they sent us back home after leaving us there in the cold for 5 hours. This is ridiculous. This is insane. So sorry that you are in the middle, but this is ridiculous.
So it seems like the quarantine camp wouldn't take him. Then suddenly after this new policy, they wanted him to go back. And he probably didn't even have COVID anymore. I'd be swearing a lot too. This phone call went hugely viral on the Chinese internet, at least before it was censored for violating regulations. But what's really telling is that before the Shanghai lockdown, plenty of Chinese people would have been incredibly offended at this foreigner for insulting China. Now, they're cheering him on. This went viral because the German expat was saying things that Chinese citizens want to say but can't. That the system is insane and ridiculous and a disgrace. That's not good for the Chinese Communist Party. More signs that people in Shanghai are reaching their breaking point after the break. Welcome back. Things are unraveling in Shanghai. Even before the new stricter quarantine policies, so many people were resisting going to quarantine camps that these notices were sent out. It says that if you refuse to go to a quarantine camp, your health code would turn red permanently. That means your movements will be restricted indefinitely. Meanwhile, desperate people are asking for help on social media, like a pregnant woman who said that she had been stuck quarantining in her car for 6 days after testing positive. Her husband was sent to a quarantine camp, but they wouldn't take her. And she had run out of food, and her baby wasn't moving. After her story attracted a lot of attention, she was able to get to the hospital in an ambulance. Others weren't so lucky. People in Shanghai have started keeping a crowdsourced list of people who died during the lockdown. Shanghai's official COVID death count is 10 people, which is too low to be true. One reason for this could be China's narrow definition of deaths from infectious diseases. Chinese hospitals tended to focus on chronic illnesses such as cancer, heart disease, or diabetes as the cause of death, even when people had contracted the virus. So say someone had heart disease and then got COVID and died. In the US, they would be counted as a COVID death. In China, they would have died of heart disease, which has the bonus of making China's COVID death rate look low and China's political system look superior. But it doesn't look superior to the relatives of people who died during the Shanghai lockdown because they couldn't get medical treatment. Not because they had COVID, but because of the lockdown. This is the crowdsourced list of lockdown deaths. As of this recording, there are 163 entries, although some of them cover multiple people, like one that documented more than 19 people who died at a nursing home. Chinese censors deleted the original list. Then when internet users saved it on a blockchain-based website, they blocked the URL in China. But they can't block people's frustration. Last week, a phone call between a Shanghai resident and a neighborhood committee worker went viral. The resident, Mr. Yu, called saying he had no medicine or food left, and he wasn't feeling well and wanted to go to the hospital. The worker said he had submitted Mr. Yu's request to go to the hospital, but hadn't heard back.
报了这么多天，都没有听到你们回应。
他们没有给我回应。
没有给你回应，你就不管了？
我不是不管，我还有很多东西我都在报。不仅仅是您一个。今天我想办法送走了一个孕妇。今天我在处置一个过世的老人。于老师，不是我们不作为，而是我们做了很多事情，我们无能为力。
They discuss how no one answers the emergency hotlines in the city. Mr. Yu eventually asks why the authorities aren't doing more to help the common people. That's when the community worker just breaks down.
就不能救救我们的老百姓吗？
我也想让他们来救救我们的老百姓啊。
我
也想啊。
为什么呀？
为什么呀？为什么呀？为什么他们会这样？
为此说呀。
老人不管，孕妇不管，过世的老人都不管，连垃圾桶都不管。
The community worker tells Mr. Yu that he's depressed because he sees hundreds of these cases every day. Mr. Yu tries to comfort him, saying he understands. In the end, neither of them has any answers.
对不起，李老师，我无能为力。
真是，我们的国家难道就是这个问题，这个样子？
我也不知道为什么上海会变成这样。
You can hear the anguish in their voices. And like I said, this recording went viral, which also means, of course, that it's been censored. But censorship isn't going to fix the problem. People have started refusing to take COVID tests. Some people are afraid that the process of mass testing is actually spreading COVID. Others are just tired of this and don't see an end. Now, refusing to get tested is a minor act of civil disobedience born out of frustration. It's not a revolution. But this is a problem for the Shanghai authorities, since their whole strategy now relies on intensive testing to find and remove positive cases. And Shanghai is urging cooperation with the new rounds of testing. And it's not just the testing. Remember what I said about rounding people up for quarantine? Residents shared stories on social media about busloads of people being taken from their homes and sent into quarantine, including babies and the elderly. But as the drive to put people into quarantine camps accelerates, it's not clear how cooperative people are going to be, especially as they watch elderly relatives or their children get forced into quarantine. So what happens next? Will Shanghai successfully reach zero community spread of COVID? Or will the harsh lockdowns, mass testing, and inhumane treatment it takes to get there further break down society? The thing is, Shanghai is China's wealthiest, most cosmopolitan, and biggest city. A lot of the people locked in their apartments right now had a pretty good life before this. They probably didn't think much about the fact that they were living under an authoritarian regime. And even the people who weren't huge fans of the Chinese Communist Party were not dissidents. The Chinese Communist Party has always persecuted people. But they successfully convinced most people that the ones being persecuted deserved it. They were counter-revolutionaries, splitists, cultists, terrorists, troublemakers, freaks. Not like normal people. If you just obeyed Chinese authorities, nothing bad would happen, right? But that's not the case with the COVID lockdowns. Everyone in the lockdown suffers. Sure, some more than others. But it gets a lot harder to ignore the flaws of the system. China's COVID lockdowns aren't going to lead to the immediate downfall of the Chinese Communist Party. But a lot of people in Shanghai are opening their eyes. Of course, people outside Shanghai who didn't go through the lockdowns know exactly who to blame for Shanghai's problems. Shanghai, for not being strict enough in their lockdowns and quarantines. At least until it's their turn to experience a lockdown. The question is, when Shanghai finally comes out of its lockdown, Will people remember? Will they remember what it was like to be locked down, to have no control, to see the truth censored before their eyes? To, like Mr. Yu, wonder why things are like this? How did our country become this way? If they remember, then one more domino falls for the Chinese Communist Party. And this episode is sponsored by Surfshark. Whenever you go online, everything you do is being tracked by the websites you visit. And then they sell records of your activities and habits to advertisers. And I definitely don't need 100 marketing companies knowing I just binged-watched all 19 seasons of Say Yes to the Dress. I don't need another sequined wedding tiara, thank you very much. But it's not just advertisers that want your data. It's also governments, especially if you're living under a censorship-happy regime like the Chinese Communist Party. They're always watching. And that's why you should be keeping your internet activity private all the time with a VPN like Surfshark. It doesn't matter what you're doing online. It's not the business of advertisers or the government. Surfshark keeps your online data private with uncrackable encryption. And now Surfshark has a new feature that will tell you when you go to a website if it's been breached or is part of a data leak. Basically, it's another way to keep you safe from malicious actors, like the Chinese government. Or Bill Cosby. So if you don't have Surfshark yet, check it out. And with just one Surfshark account, you can use it on all your devices, your phone, your laptop, your tablet, your teleprompter. So try it out. And now Surfshark has a special deal for China Uncensored fans that includes 83% off a 2-year plan plus 3 extra months for free. That makes it just $2.21 a month. So go to surfshark.com/uncensored and use the code UNCENSORED to get this deal. The link is in the description down below. Once again, I'm Shelley Chung. Thanks for watching China Uncensored.